Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Meelas, an Abu Dhabi Wargaming podcast. The Meelas is hosted by me, Simon, along with my co-host, Ibrahim. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
We are watched over once again by the four cats of the Meelas, of whom Cinder was warming my chair for me on the couch. Nala decided to leap at me, which was fun. And where the other two are, I have no idea.
Cinder is cleaning himself.
He is. He's keeping himself nicely groomed.
And Caspar is probably chilling somewhere.
Somewhere.
Probably on some random chair.
I can see one of them on a chair. But yeah, they're taking the opportunity to be chilling, as always. And I think Megatron was laying on a chair waiting to be stroked. He just had that love me kind of just look on his face.
Draw me like one of your French girls pose. But I don't know where he is anymore. Yeah, that's how I saw him last time as well, like when I was passing by.
So the cats are all good, because we didn't give a cat update last week, and I thought I'd add them in just to make sure. Anyway, this episode we'll go through our usual segments of what got played at the Meelas, what's on the hobby table. There's been a ton of updates on our second edition campaign progress, and for this week, as our main topic, we'll be discussing the concept of Oldhammer, or Retro K, as we dubbed it last week, and what are we actually trying to recreate with it. So to skip to those, just check the chapters. Every episode on YouTube and Spotify has them. If you enjoy our podcast, we would very much appreciate a like, a subscribe, or similar on whatever platform you're on. This helps us grow. And you can also find our Instagram at ad.wargaming to see all our little updates that we've got for you. Getting started though, we have our karak and our Arabic coffee. So let's get into it. First of all, what we'll do actually is say farewell to Adam, who attended the Meelas for the final time on the weekend, as he is off to live and work in the USA. So we wanted to say, Adam, it's been amazing having you. We've loved your presence. We've loved your games. You played many games against me with your Mechanicum, against my Blood Angels for Heresy, and all the other games we've introduced to you, of which there are many.
Oh yeah, he spent the last, I think, 3 months just trying every game. It's been amazing having him. He's an awesome guy, and Texas is lucky to have a Milesian.
And he takes with him an accidental Iron Hands army that he didn't mean to build, but suddenly has.
That happened. Because he didn't stray that far off the Mechanicum.
Exactly. Once he packed up his big robots, he picked up a legion that uses big robots.
Yes. So it's all in the theme. Yeah.
And all the other games he's going to pick up and start as well.
Definitely, yeah. We look forward to seeing what games he play.
Absolutely. So yeah, keep in touch, Adam, and thank you very much for your contributions to the Meelas over the months we've been here.
You'll be missed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we move on to our main topics, we discovered that both in what got played at the Meelas and what's on the hobby table and our campaign update, that they all kind of involve me. So for this episode, Ibrahim's going to be doing the introductions.
So what did get played at the Meelas this weekend?
There were 3 games on the Saturday that we played. 2 of them were the second edition 40k that we did in our Hollow Star campaign. So we'll talk about those later, along with some other results that came in. But the main other game we played, you, Ibrahim, gave myself and Mohamed a introduction to Black Seas.
Yeah, we'll have the rules wrong.
It was all the rules that you remembered from your previous game when you weren't reading the rules.
Yeah.
And then as I got to read the rules towards the end of the game, going, that's interesting. Oh, we should have done that differently and that differently. And
it was mainly the winds, like the wind direction changes. The main thing is the wind shouldn't change dramatically every turn.
So it was, in our games, the wind was completely random every turn.
It was all over the place, literally.
Which led to some interesting maneuvers. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So the way Black Seas work is activation is based on the wind direction. The first ship that gets activated is the one closest from where the wind is coming from. And when the wind is changing every turn, you end up with an activation that is all over the place. I mean, even if you do don't change it at all, your movement alone can result in the initiative changing. But you did not need more help.
Exactly. At some point, the wind will be at your back,
Yeah.
and you can move your ships extra fast, and you can whip round, take that initiative.
Yeah.
But once you have passed your opponent, they will have the wind. So you kind of permanently circle each other and be against or with the wind as needs be. But with a random wind direction, all hell breaks loose, and suddenly ships that are line astern accidentally now start from the back rather than the front.
I just rammed it. I mean, you can tell. I mean, how did that end up?
So I took advantage of the wind to begin with to shoot across the board, take some damage of one of Mohammed's ships, and get into his deployment zone to score myself some victory points. But the other half of my fleet, the main ship and one of the little brigs, kind of held the center, which was great until Mohammed scored a critical hit on my main ship, which started a fire because he rolled a 6 on the critical hit table. So that ship was on fire, which means it couldn't do anything but go straight and try and put the fire out. And in doing that, because of the wind direction, one of my other ships passed by it within 1 inch and caught fire. And that ship also was, I think it had its quarterdeck knocked out, so it had to go straight twice. It went straight again, and then it set on fire one of Mohammed's ships. Yes. So there were 3 ships burning because of one shot and some odd movement decisions in the middle of the board. And then my main ship put the fire out, had to sail straight 5 inches, collided with Mohammed's ship that was on fire, and re-caught itself on fire. And it was like a game of Gorkamorka. It was so random.
I mean, I don't think it's supposed to be that random. There's randomness in it, but not that random.
And partly that's positioning, partly that's setting your sails too fast, so that when something happens and you can't turn, you just go straight forward as fast as possible. Like, whoops.
Incredible game.
It was phenomenal, and Mohammed and I had a really good time. I ended up winning on damage just.
Yeah. It was 46, 49?
Something like that.
Like that, yeah.
And it was only because I'd done some damage right at the end.
Yeah.
And sunk a ship.
And because I forgot a big chunk of the map that I didn't unfold.
Because the paper map that comes with the game, you unfolded 4 times rather than the 5th time, so we lost like 20% of the playing board. And when I picked it up to pack it away, I was like, hey, this is folded. Him.
It was 1 a.m.
It was. But we had fun, and I can see that it's almost like a pick up and play game with that smaller fleet.
Yeah.
And as we said before, like last episode we were talking about it, it's a D10 system. So you're looking at 50% chance to hit that goes down to 20% chance to hit at range going fast. And it's 20%, we can hit that.
Yeah, right.
We can miss that all day, or we can hit that all day.
Which was the case in my game with Tyler. We missed most of our 2s and 1s.
But it was fun using the cotton wool that comes with it for fire and gun smoke, black powder, white powder, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just gives that extra bit of personality on the game. We're also looking in the box that it comes with, because it comes with sails, but it also comes with thread for rigging and shows you how to do appropriate rigging for the various sails. And I'm thinking that does actually look quite good.
It does.
when they've got all those bits of rigging.
Because now it feels like it's a bit naked, like there's no sails, there's no rig. So it feels weird, but like I'm tempted to try it, but also scared. Because it's so small. It's tight.
Yeah, you need a dab of super glue, a steady hand, and trying to tighten this thread around the...
Lost me at steady hand.
But yeah, I would look forward to having another bash at that with correct rules on a larger table.
I did see. I mean, this is a tangent or sidetrack, but I did see a Dreadfleet new box. Maybe.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I am tempted.
I never played Dreadfleet, but I played a tiny bit of Man of War 30 years ago. So I remember having fun with that, and that comes with a lot of tokens and a lot of crew counters and fire counters and damage counters and all sorts of things. But it was a fun-looking game, and that's why I wanted to have a go at Black Seas after we talked about it last week, because it just feels fun.
Because I saw one of the, I think it's like the Vampire Count's ship in that box, and it's just like a ghost ship. And I loved that model.
Very Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like multiple ships, but that ship alone was like,
yeah, because I look at like the high elf ships and just think they look so cool, very high elven, but not like a real ship.
yeah. I mean, if you look at Armada, which is the Mantic Games ship battles, it has a lot of good proxies for Man of War because it has the same factions: high elves, dwarves, orcs, humans. There's also a whole fleet for Tonkings. So, yeah,
Interesting.
more ship games coming. What did I just tell you before the podcast? I'm settled on games. I lied.
Yeah, literally 5 minutes ago, you said, yeah, there's a limit to how many new games I can play. And what do? We are, as of recording, 13 minutes in.
Yeah.
And he's already.
Hey, that's my limit though. Like, like these are still within my limit.
It's Black Sails, but different. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fun. It has fun stuff. I think. I don't know. I don't even know the rules. Like I just saw cool ships. That's my weakness, I guess. It's in my blood, which see people
Exactly.
close to me.
That's true. Whereas I am not coastal.
Ah.
But I still like ships. I enjoyed Black Seas a lot. It was good fun. I'd be interested in having another little go to get into the feel of it.
Yeah. Would be cool. Or maybe try something else.
I'm always up for trying something else.
Yes.
Hey, we tried 11th edition 40k.
Why would you mention that? Like, we're in a very, healthy environment, talking about fun stuff. And then you go on and mention,
That, I think that's something I'm sure we'll talk about later. When it comes to those changes they've made recently with 11th edition rules and as far as Space Marines go, I'm sure that will come up. But yeah, that's basically what got played at the Meelas that wasn't part of the Hollow Star 2nd edition campaign.
Yeah. So, were there any painting going on?
I think there was a reasonable amount of painting going on. Levi was doing his dragon for Cathay, which I could tell was for Cathay because it had one of those like Fu Manchu moustaches.
Yeah. Like, you can't see Cathay from miles away. They're very unique, even for a Warhammer army. You can, it's really spot on.
And that's one of the little dragons they have, or relatively little.
Yes, it's for one of the lords. Like it's not one of the big dragons. It's like a riding dragon, so it's like a lower tier dragon. Because they have the Dragon Emperor, and then he has his sons and daughters that rule different parts of Cathay.
I've completely ignored Cathay in Total Warhammer 3. Completely ignored them.
So if you play Lord Zinch, you get really close to them and end up attacking them a lot.
I play Mortal Empires generally, and it's every so often I see one of their caravans and be like, what are you doing here?
Go away. Shoo.
Exactly.
Honestly, I love it. Love to see more dragons. Cathay needs more dragons.
But that wasn't the only bit of painting going on. Hassan was doing his Cities of Sigmar again. He was carrying on with his Knights Gallant, doing one of his like champion type guys.
The commemorative model he's a special model. I think it's also his entry for Tabletop Me.
Oh yes, of course.
Competition. So, would love to see how that turns out.
Because that leads us to one of the things you've been painting. Of the many things you've been painting. Because Tabletop ME is going to be in November, I think. And like they did last time, there is a painting competition. And I saw you were doing one of your Infinity Big Boys working on that.
Yes.
It is. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I am currently painting the avatar, not to be mistaken for the airbender. Is a different kind of avatar.
So it's not Aang, it's not a blue-skinned James Cameron creature, nor is it an Eldar invocation of Kala Mencha Kane, but it's a different kind of avatar.
It's a different kind of avatar. It's the Infinity's avatar. So when I went to Munich, Germany in 2024, I had no idea what Infinity was. I saw the box and I don't know, it instinctively called to me and I got it because of course I would. I've had it since then. And of course after Meelas happened and Jagosh told me about Infinity and I was like, oh, I have this model that I had a bunch of boxes. The avatar was just one of them. And so I was like, I always wanted to paint it to a standard where I wouldn't even imagine myself painting. So this is really an opportunity to do that, to paint this centerpiece of that whole faction. In Infinity, the alien race is called the Combined Army. And it's called the Combine because it's made of different factions that are a bit like the Halo Covenant. And the main one is called the Rationalists. And the Rationalists are led by an AI that when they jump into the battle, they use the avatar. So they would take control of the avatar and lead the Combined armies from the front through the avatar. And it's a giant, weird alien mech kaiju kind of, I don't know, it's a weird model, but I love it. It's so cool.
It's got a few different influences I can see that's gone into its design, but it's very lithe, very techno-organic. And from what I've seen you've done so far, particularly on like the armor plates, you've stepped up your game massively in terms of the way you use your airbrush, the way you do highlights, the way you do blending. It's just been only the opening base parts of it, but it's looking absolutely gorgeous. And I cannot wait to see where you're going to go with it because it looks great already.
A big shout out to Jagosh, honestly. Like I would not be even close, or I'd be years away from the level I reached with this model if it wasn't for his classes, honestly. We had a very intense workshop yesterday, and that was around, I think, 5 or 6 hours of painting to reach that level. And this is just the beginning. Like it's just the highlights with the airbrush. And the way he approaches paints in general, like if you see the model on the box, like the box art, it's black and red. But the way we approached it, the metal is black, but has a lot of green and blue and purple shadows to it to create that alien feel and that alien metallic feel to it. Before getting even to the reds, which will contrast really nicely with that subtle green and blue. I've had so much fun yesterday with them, and we're gonna probably have more such classes soon, and hopefully we'll see how that progresses.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, that and me messing up painting yellow on my Thousand Sons, which was also
I wouldn't call that messing up. It just didn't quite come out the way you wanted it.
no,
And there will be a way to fix it, I'm sure.
definitely, yeah.
But your bright yellow Thousand Sons trim that you were doing, that we actually talked about yesterday, you continued doing it and then suddenly went a bit see-through and a bit greeny, and it was, I don't know where that came from, but...
Yeah, no. I think there's, now I have a better, because after yesterday's class, honestly, I have multiple ideas on how to fix it or work on it in a much organized way than I did initially. But it will take some time, I think.
But you've also been working through your Warriors of Chaos.
Yeah. I mean, my Warriors of Chaos are a very, very basic scheme. Like, to a point I don't even consider it like painting.
You're adding metal and fur and different color metals.
With a brush. So it's technically painting. but it's like, get it over with painting. Even though I love the models, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's a lot of models and I rather have them just dirty and on the table. Like I did already 10 warriors. I'm doing another 20 and then 8 knights and another champion I also finished my Chaos Sorcerer. Oh, I have been painting a lot.
You have, yeah. That's why I was saying.
Yeah, my Chaos Sorcerer, I painted it pretty like over one day. On that model, I tried to focus on the reds and doing like red leather, red cloth, which was fun to do. But then I was like, okay, this is good enough. And then just speed up the rest of the model. You had your hands full with your Lamenters as well.
I did. I have finished my 1500 point army. So what I needed to do for that was the Rhino, the Scouts with sniper rifles, and the Tech Marine and the Death Company Dreadnought. Because originally I was going to build them as a 3rd edition Liber Badab army, which is why the Death Company Dreadnought really starts to shine there. But then I was like, let's do a 2nd edition campaign separately. Oh, look, I have these Lamenters. And what's the difference between a yellow Dreadnought versus a black Dreadnought in 2nd edition? The answer is nothing. So he's there waiting for an actual Death Company to join when I decide to take it up to 2,000 points. But now I've got my finished, like a full finished army, and I'm really happy with how they came together. Wasn't trying to be too fancy with them, make them look of the time, maybe not of the painting skill I used to have as a kid, but at least simple, clean, done. Possibly could have done them a bit better with an extra highlight or an extra bit of care or this, that, or the other, but they're all together. They look like a cohesive force.
Yep.
So I'm really pleased with them.
It's amazing with the checkers. There's always a lot of freehand on that as well.
There's a lot of freehand that it was almost all done by pen rather than brush. I've got a tiny little micro pen that I was doing to kind of sketch out where the check should be, and then using a slightly thicker pen to kind of basically to fill it in. And it's not perfect by any means. It passes the 3-foot rule. I think they're fine.
Oh, they look great. Like even when we played our game, they looked amazing. Like my Death Guard and just blue primed models.
But then again, when I first played them against Andrew, all of his Ultramarines were painted and none of mine were.
Yeah.
And there's just grey and silver and occasional undercoat, and maybe I think like the sergeant had a coat of yellow and that was it. And I was thinking, oh, that doesn't look very good. But to have them fully done now, including Maelstrom Warder transfers, a couple of other like Lamenters transfers, really, really pleased with how they've ended up, and they're cohesive and finished, and I'm bringing myself to actually do my Storm Eagle now. Like, Lamenters are done, I can stomach having a go at the Storm Eagle.
Before another Lamenter thing shows up.
Yes.
The doorstep, yeah.
Which is printing in the background. So, shout out to Dr. Spork for his Land Raider.
Oh, yeah.
And also all of his terrain that we already use his 2nd edition box set L-shaped ruins. And there will be more, I'm sure, in the future.
I can't wait. I like the way he does his foils, because they're easily printed with an FDM rather than just being forced to use rosin, especially for all those chunky, like big parts. Yeah, it's awesome. Like, I really love the chaos tanks he did.
Yeah, the skull is so extra. It's amazing. Although, if anybody is deciding to use Dr. Spork's models for printing, do the Land Raiders particularly at 87% size, because that sizes them correctly for 2nd ed models, and is almost exactly the size of an old Land Raider for their Land Raider one. If you do it any bigger, it suddenly gets like to be the size of a Spartan if you do it at 100%. So 87% is the key, apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
And it works.
Andrew confirmed it with the atomically bond, because of his super glue that he used when he was a younger Land Raider. Yeah, so it was the same size.
Yeah, 1-for-1 match, it seemed. But yeah, I think that sums up what we managed to do on the hobby table itself.
Yeah, I think that leads us really nicely into the campaign.
The Hollow Star of Kadavah. Yeah, so since we last recorded an episode, 3 more battle reports have come in from not only from Wolfpack Games in Georgia, but also parts unknown, or unconfirmed at least. We had a result of Dark Angels versus Dark Mechanicum, which apparently was in 5th edition as well, where both sides were fighting over a power plant in the ruins. The Dark Angels came along and just wiped out most of the Mechanicum forces who ran away to their masters. But enough survived to escape and bring word of what happened, but the Dark Angels were pretty much in control of the power plant. We had word of an Ultramarines versus Dark Eldar battle, again using 5th edition rules. The Dark Eldar laid a trap for the Ultramarines, but then Marneus Calgar and his Honor Guard turned up and basically kicked the Dark Eldar off the board. So that's 2 games, 2 losses for the Dark Eldar, so they need to lick their wounds and try a new strategy, I think.
Nice.
And Calgar turns up everywhere, and here he is in the Hollow Calgar campaign.
The Hollow Calgar campaign.
It's a new model coming Q4 2026. There was also one additional one that battle report that came in, which was Imperial Guard versus Sisters of Battle, a bit of Imperium action, where the Imperial Guard turned up and the Sisters basically went aggro immediately. Yes, and pushed the Imperial Guard away to keep hold of the territory that they were contesting. Nice. So a bit of blue on blue action there, which is great to see.
Very Warhammer.
Very Warhammer.
Very Warhammer. Maybe they weren't playing hard enough, that's why.
Possibly. Not devoted enough. So the Sisters had something to say about that.
Yeah, they had to push them off.
Quite possibly.
Ouch.
So yeah, thank you to everybody who's been submitting these, to Dan, Brandon, Vince, Chapter Master Reed, everybody who's been getting involved. It's been really cool to read. Thank you very much. Long may it continue for your Retro K games to come and provide us with some results, see how your campaign develops, and see how it contributes to ours and what we do contributes to yours. Now, the 2 games in the Hollow Star campaign that got played at the Meelas were both Lamenters versus Thousand Sons, but with different players.
Yes.
We built off the back of the Dark Angels versus Dark Mechanicum result, which was the power plant fight in the ruins. So what we thought was that the Dark Mechanicum who had run away would have told their Chaos Masters. And at that point, the Thousand Sons present on the planet would decide that they needed to take some of the high ground points for some nefarious scheme, whether it's strategic or whether it's psychic based. We weren't quite sure, but they were taking some terrain, while the Lamenters under me were looking to basically see if they can kill the sorcerer, lop the head off the snake. So that was you versus me, Ibrahim.
Yep.
And such a high scoring game. It was 2 victory points to 1 in favor of the Lamenters. We didn't kill anything for like a turn and a half.
Everything was missing. Nothing would get hit. Like, it was just nothing.
Like, we're lobbing bolters at each other, lobbing missiles, lobbing autocannons and heavy bolters in the first turn, and not a single death in the whole first turn with all these shots. It was ridiculous.
Even like the second turn was like, what?
One Marine, it was like one Marine on one Lamenter, and I think, was that when I blew the heavy bolter off the Predator?
Yeah.
Which was one of my points of damaging a vehicle.
Yeah.
And then by the time it got to turn 3, and you tried to take the high ground in the middle, because we had 3 hills that you were trying to take, and one of your Rubik Marines were trying to take the middle hill, and my Terminator said, nope.
Yep.
And they charged in, and dear Lord, lightning claws and thunder hammers against Rubik Marines just ended with a lot of dust on the floor.
They hurt. But like it was a weird decision to make, so it was either you go for your witch hunt or not have me take the hold.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with no one winning, I mean, the objective, like, which was funny.
Because your sorcerer was at the back, and he stepped out, but I wasn't running to get to him. I wasn't aggressive enough. And so by like turn 2, I thought, oh, I'm not going to get to him. And then he went and hid anyway. So I was like, okay, fine. Yeah. And so I thought, now it has to be stop you getting your victory points, because I'm not getting any others. So I got 1 victory point for wiping out that squad. I got another victory point for blowing off the heavy bolter from one of the Predators you've got. And then you got a point for
killing your squad.
Yeah, the
tacticals.
Yeah. That was it.
Yeah. I mean, it was 1, 2.
Yeah. So we both failed everything.
Yes. absolute failures.
Not killing the Thousand Sons sorcerer versus not taking the high ground that was objective for whatever reason, like a stalemate generally. After we played that, I persuaded Adam to get involved with our final game of the Meelas, which of course is a new game to him of 2nd edition.
Why not?
And just to mix it up, I thought I'll take the Thousand Sons, just the same forces, same battlefield, just have another go, and give him the Marines because he'd be more used to them. And what we decided was the Lamenters were doing a take and hold mission to try and secure. We used the Dreadnought model, my Death Company Dreadnought model, right in the middle of the table. So securing some gene seed, perhaps.
We kept rescuing the dead.
Yeah, rescuing the actual Dreadnought sarcophagus itself to use again, because maybe the pilots died inside and you need to take the armor back. And so that was his. He just had to get his troops next to it at the end of the game. Whereas I decided to take hold the line in the case of don't have any of your troops in my half, and I'll get 5 victory points. This was a little bit more killy, this game.
Yeah, how much?
As your predators in your game didn't do a whole lot of damage. Whereas for me, they did a hell of a lot of damage on the first turn, they wiped out the combat squad with the missile launcher. And then there was nothing realistically that could kill the predators except lucky crack grenades or the Terminators with the Thunderhammers. And they weren't going for the Terminators with the Thunderhammers because they were going to go and take the objective. So the rest of the game after turn 1 was basically, can I kill 50% of the Terminator squad so that they wouldn't count for denying me my objective? So 3 turns of 2 standard Predators and 12 Rubik Marines and 1 Sorcerer, all desperately trying to just shoot at these assault Terminators. And because I'd helped Adam along with the guys with the storm shields having 90-degree arc in front of them of a 4-up, essentially feel no pain, an invulnerable save that takes after, you take that save after the 3-up on 2d6. And so once he repositioned them as he was moving along, and then I started shooting at them, and over 3 turns of the whole army trying to kill them, I killed 3 Terminators. And I only killed the 3rd Terminator out of 5 to reduce them below 50% with the final shot of the game, because I got one of the Predators round the back, and the autocannon heavy bolters were able to bypass the 4-up invulnerable.
Yeah, so bad. So hard to get through.
If you position them right. I mean, normal Terminators are bad enough, but then you've got 3 out of 5 who've got storm shields, and they're not invulnerable, but it's pretty damn close. 1 died for that autocannon in the back, 1 died because the sorcerer used a killy psychic power on it, and the other one, I think, just weight of numbers eventually collapsed it. But it took forever, and only 3 died. But they still claimed their objective. So they got their Dreadnought back, took their 5 points. That was their only 5 points, because I don't think I lost a model. Thousand Sons completely without needing to use the vacuum cleaner to suck them back up. Unscathed.
Nice.
And I also managed my objective, which was the 5 points for not having a squad at full strength in my half. So I got the 5 points for that. Plus I got a point for taking out 1 combat squad, a point for taking out the Terminators, and a point for taking out another combat squad. So it ended up being 8-5 to the Thousand Sons. So they kept their territory intact, but the Lamenters still completed their mission without killing a single.
Hey, that's a much more eventful one than the first one. That's for sure.
A lot more happened.
Definitely.
But the thing that really brought it home to me is that both of those 1,000-point games were done in about an hour.
Yep.
And I know you had what? 15 models. I had probably 15, 16 models as well. It's not a lot, but 1,000 points in an hour, done. I was almost expecting it to be longer. So I don't see how 1,500 points would be exponentially more. It would just be a bit more complicated with a few more things to do.
Yeah. I would imagine it would be maybe 2 hours, and with being more used to the rules, acquainted to the units and how they play. Because factions play a bit differently, especially like when we read the psychic stuff. Like there were rule checking during the game. Like, it wasn't just flat, like nothing.
Yeah.
And with playing more games, I think it's gonna be even speedier. To a point, I can see us maybe playing 1,500 would be probably 2 hours, maybe,
Yeah.
probably less.
I think depends how complicated your demon summoning and playing Gwent in the psychic phase is.
I don't think it's gonna be the things there. It's not that hard. Like it's pretty straightforward. Just trying to spam sorcerers just to do the summoning pretty faster, like faster because of the and getting lucky with the cards. It's also luck based. So.
Like your greater demons and your pink horrors and stuff don't start the game. They need to be summoned.
Yeah.
They need to be summoned. For Tzeentch, it's you casting other powers, generates summoning points that you can use to bring in your demons, and you need 10 points for a greater demon, but you get your points count as double if somebody with a mark of chaos, which is like 20 points, casts that spell. So turn 2, latest turn 3, unless you get super unlucky with a warp draw. Because you roll 2d6 and you distribute that many warp cards, starting with your team because you're Thousand Sons and you're special that way.
And also, like, the cool thing is both of us.
Yes.
So if you have Psychers and I have Psychers, you would count for 1 point, I'll count for 2. I think the cool one is Slanesh, is where any leadership role, you get a point. And if you go, like, I think with specific weapons, you can cause a lot of leadership roles.
Yes, absolutely.
Norgon, they also have their own stuff, which is a really nice touch that I really love. And wish it was still honestly a thing, like, because it gives character to each Chaos God. That's cool to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And like sacrifice a champion who turns into the demon.
Yeah, because I think you can have it summoned, but you can also have it become as a position. So your Chaos Lord can turn into a greater demon. I mean, he doesn't turn, he gets possessed and becomes like...
He changes into one.
He becomes a Lord of Change.
Hey.
Which is interesting. I really love that. Like, I love how early Retro K Warhammer gives a lot of attention to, especially as a Chaos player, as someone that always loved Chaos. I love the attention of systems put for all of these little things that really build up into creating a very thematic gameplay. Like having to summon your demons, like even each demon, the normal demons, like pink horrors, I think you need 6 points to summon a whole unit, because it's 2 points each. So yeah, it's thematic. I think that's the interesting part. It makes you read into the game, because it feels like it's built into the game system, rather than just an extra thing to throw in, which is nice. I really like that.
Yeah, I think we've sort of started talking about it already, in terms of the things that Retro K, Oldhammer, Midhammer, whatever we want to call it. I think we'll stick with Retro K for now.
Yeah.
But what are we actually trying to recreate by playing older editions? Now, in the wake of the 11th edition changes that for us got announced yesterday, changes to the Space Marines in terms of what's going to Legends, stuff that's maybe 5 years old, like the Suppressors are going to Legends.
What?
Yeah. So a unit that I consider to be brand new Primaris craziness is already going to Legends, and it's going to be Interceptors, which are the guys with like 2 big bolters or 2 plasma things.
The ones flying, yeah?
Yeah. There's been lots of people who've been saying that's half my army is now no longer at official GW tournaments unless it's specifically allowed, because people who rely on Predator Annihilators, for example. With the way that new editions of 40k get messed around with each time, us going back to 2nd edition, 3rd edition, and that kind of era, is it that it's a reaction to what's happening currently with, quote, new rules? What do we feel that we're trying to do, in your opinion, by using Retro K rules?
I think it's going back to a place where game design was purer, where the intention was to have fun, and it was made by people who clearly wanted to make a fun game. That they also cared a lot about the universe and the world they are building this game around, and wanted to implement those ideas within that universe on the table.
I wouldn't accuse them of actively not doing that, because I'm sure that everybody who is writing the rules is trying to do all those things of make it fun and interesting and different and pay attention to the lore, etc. But I feel like too many decisions are being made by what will sell.
It feels like they're following a formula. Like, it's not even about what's gonna sell, because there are ways to make them sell. But I think the amount of maybe pressure they're going through, especially the rules writers, and maybe, as you said, also maybe different ideas coming down on them from above, probably influence a lot of the decision making, and that can take a lot. But earlier Warhammer most likely did not have to go through that, and the decision making was a much smaller chain than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
As it's natural for the bigger the company, the bigger the institution is, the larger the chain becomes, and with that, a lot of things get either focused on and others get kind of overlooked.
Like, Games Workshop PLC has a market cap of over £6 billion. That's like $8.3 billion. That's an insanely large company
Yeah,
compared to running out of, the back of Brian Ansell's house in the 80s, making magazines and
they've
casting
come a
up
long way,
minis.
I think. Yeah.
They are an amazing financial story, and they are a British success story
Definitely.
of where they've come from and where they've ended up and how dominant they are. They are the hobby, pretty much. They're the hegemon of tabletop wargaming.
Yeah, for sure.
So they've only got there by being high quality, great models, really interesting games to play, and the best of what was available and most easily available.
Yep.
So they've got to this point, but we are drawn to the earlier style of games. Now, as we've said before, you've started in 8th edition, but you're looking at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th even, going, oh, these rules look much better. This seems like a much more fun game to play. Oh, didn't the minis have so much more character back then? And it's not being said from a point of like me saying it from nostalgia, going, oh, they had soul, now they're just lovely minis, but they're bland and corporate. That's not me putting my rose-tinted glasses on. That's you as a relatively new player going, oh no, actually, this old thing looks much cooler.
Yeah. It's basic, because a lot of the games that grow nowadays, they all kind of graduate towards being esports, no matter the game. Any game nowadays, no matter how humble the beginnings were, for some reason, the final destination, the peak apparently, is becoming an esport. I don't think so. I don't think that's what you should strive to be. It's because it's mainly the money maker. That's where the money is at, apparently. And that's why they kind of diverge toward that. But going down that route, you're going to lose a lot of characters. You're going to lose a lot of personality and soul, because you're trying to standardize something, and by doing that, you're making it a bit flat and samey. And when you do that, that's kind of when the core of that gameplay kind of goes away, because you're trying to balancing it. Because that's what, for example, makes other games interesting, like Ramonda or Horus Heresy, is that it's not built to be balanced. It's built to be thematic and fun. That's it. Don't expect to like winning. You can easily destroy a Necromunda campaign using a specific list. You're not gonna make a lot of friends doing that. Like, that's not the point, like not being meta or like playing the best thing, or it's playing what you think is fun or thematic. And that's the core, I think, of Warhammer, is the theme. That's why I think it's the giant it is today. It's the universe it's built around is really interesting. The grim dark vibes to the huge amount of content and lore in that background is what attracts a lot of people in. But modern Warhammer, I don't think it has that. I think Retro K has way more.
So how do you make that delineation between modern and retro? Is it rule set? Is it minis? Is it the paint schemes? Is it something slightly more nebulous like atmosphere that's more vibes based? What is it that you look at and go, that feels retro versus that feels modern?
I'm not sure what to call it, but maybe like microsystems, you know? Like we were talking about summoning demons. That's a whole different like thing just for that one faction. Nowadays, you wouldn't see that being designed just for chaos. For chaos, the rule is just sunrise it across the whole, like Save the Darkness, Chaos Warriors, Chaos Space Marines, they will all have Gaze of the Gods. Roll a d6, random buff, enjoy your day, or I think Dark Pact for 40k or whatever. Like it's nothing that interesting. Like it's just roll one dice and you get a buff. Okay.
Yeah, you say that like the summoning point's just for chaos, which no other army had something like that. But then you look at current edition and everybody has stratagems and command point rerolls. And yes, you can tweak those command point plays, those options that you can have are tweaked per army and per faction. Like, oh, there's this one, detachment ability that I have, but it's still within the bounds of the command point system, which everybody gets access to. So it's just different flavors of the same mechanic, whereas older editions had their own mechanics completely.
It's the natural evolution to being an esport. You need to standardize the systems to allow easier balancing, but there's a obvious giveaway from that is that you lose that kind of depth and soul of your faction.
Like, I feel Horus Heresy across its editions has gone on that journey, because lots of people have said third feels less thematic than second, and lots of people said that second feels less thematic than first. Like the Black Books were some vast treasure trove of just lore and amazing descriptions, but was the game better? I don't know. Was it just that people were so immersed in it from all the different lore? Whereas second, people, oh, it's a bit blander. And then third, people are going, oh, it's even more blander, but it is more playable, I think, is overall a better game for being better balanced, but you're losing a bit of the faction flavor across the different legions.
Honestly, I wouldn't even. Personally, I don't think third is better than second. Like, I don't. I like them. I like second more, but I don't think third is a bad game. It's a good game, but it feels like it's going down that standardization route. And then also now they're doing this thing where they're DLCing units with the different books. For example, now with the Custodies, I was reading the article that came out about the multiple new units, and one of them was adding the Blade Master, which existed, and it's a model in 40k. So you know that existed. You have a model for it, but you're, instead of releasing it in the codex, you're giving it time, and then now you're releasing it in a DLC format instead of what they used to do, which is a PDF on their Warhammer community, and here you go. Because that's what they used to do. Like those throwaway units, you'd find them online, buy them, instead of selling a 14-page book for some reason.
That's the kind of thing that used to just be released in White Dwarf. Like when they introduced Necrons towards the end of second edition, before they brought them properly in third, and said, this is kind of sort of a test. If you play with these Necrons, send us an email, let us know what happened. And I think even then it was write in, because it was like 97.
Yeah.
It was, if you've played this Necron army, write in, tell us how many points, what happened, was it weird, would you do it again? And they were asking for feedback literally in White Dwarf. And so many rules drops happened in White Dwarf in the old days. Like, I think one for second edition was take a combat squad of Marines, rather than having to use a captain and a full tactical squad. That's immediately almost 500 points. What if you were allowed to use essentially a consul, like a librarian or a chaplain or an apothecary or some kind of lesser officer as your army commander, and you only took 5-man squads rather than 10-man squads? And suddenly your Marine army's got a lot more varied at lower points values. I think the example in White Dwarf, because it was an Ian Pickstock article, which was chaplain, combat assault squad, combat, tactical squad, rhino, done. There's your 500 points, which was unplayable in the previous world, and that was just released in White Dwarf for free. The number of additional missions they released in White Dwarf and just said, if you bought the magazine, here you go.
Yeah.
And that was all you needed. It wasn't an additional, as you say, DLC booklet.
Yeah.
It was just...
They're making them like White Dwarf sized.
Yeah.
Then it's supposed to have a lot of lore in it and background, and then new missions, sure, maybe. But like that kind of content, you will get much more street cred, reputation, or like positive feedback.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the beauty of the like indie games that make tabletop miniature games, that they could afford to do that, like to take in feedback, design their factions or whatever based on that. GW now is way too big for that.
When the inside of the book cover said, by Andy Chambers, by Rick Priestley, by Jervis Johnson, whoever it happened to be, you knew that somebody was writing it. And part of their other policy of taking away names from people, like we were having a discussion on WhatsApp about the reveal of these Space Marine rules, and it's the bald one and the other one, because I don't know who their names are.
Yeah.
Their names don't come up. They may refer to each other by names, but I don't know what they are. And as soon as you give somebody a name, this is Duncan Rhodes doing the painting. He's just going to go away and use that cachet to start his own company. And no, we need to have a little slightly parasocial relationship with the people who work at GW, because we need to know who is writing these rules. Who do we blame? Who do we cheer? Oh, Alan Bly worked a certain way and he produced Heresy this way. And we go, this is his baby. We understand that. Andy Chambers writing particular codexes, like the Skaven Warhammer Armies book. We know his writing style. We know what he likes. We know what he puts into his games. And that helps us connect with him more, rather than produced by Games Workshop. Like, yeah, but who worked on it?
Yeah.
Who did the layout? Who did the spot graphics?
I think the justification was, I mean, the corporate at least justification was to protect them in case things go bad. Maybe things shouldn't go bad.
I mean, with a company of that size, you should be able to QC these things first.
Yeah, you'd think, you'd hope. Codex is used to stay for a while, like, because editions used to live way longer.
Second edition lasted 5 years, from 93 to 98, when third came out. Third lasted for 6 years until 2004. Fourth lasted 4 years until 2008. Fifth, again, 4 years until 2012. Sixth edition people, I think, hated. So seventh rebounded 2 years later.
Yep.
And then since then, it's been on a 3-year cycle. And then seventh is where we ended up getting Heresy from. So there are some good signposts along the way of what happened there. But yeah, I think the earlier editions that lasted for a little bit longer, partly because there wasn't the distribution system, that you couldn't just send out the rules to everybody immediately. It was, you had to build it for 6 months in White Dwarf first.
Which I think is a way to justify having rules be better nowadays. Like, you can easily circulate it, you can easily test it globally. But again, they're testing it. Even when they do test it, it's not for the reasons we play second or third or fourth or fifth. It won't be. Because it's currently being balanced to be an esport, to be competitive. When I play a game, I don't genuinely care if I win. I just love to see the story that comes out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think Necromunda and Heresy are two systems that I like in Warhammer, because they still focus on that.
Mm.
They're also getting back cyclic levels, and that makes me optimistic about next edition. Like, now everything is killy, everything gets deleted instantly. But if they're copying that from old world, which is already a thing in second edition, because of that small change, I'm very optimistic about 12th edition. So, because it seems that they are learning from different stuff that they've done before. So that's interesting. And maybe the codex, the Space Marine Codex, will also have interesting stuff. interesting changes that are similar to that. Because I was not expecting that to return.
With the Retro K games, playing those on our table, how authentic are we trying it to be? Because we're approaching it with the knowledge of how to play these games properly. Now, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, a lot of us played very random, very different rules that may or may not have been what other people were playing, but because you were isolated at the time, you didn't know that you were playing it wrong until you accidentally found somebody else who played it differently. So because second is essentially solved in terms of all the different house rules you can find, people who have come up with all the situations and gone, we do it this way, somebody else does it this way, pick your own favorite, and that's probably fair overall. So in terms of like an authentic second experience, do you feel like you're getting that playing the 2E rules?
Yeah, it feels like, honestly, it doesn't feel like I'm playing 40k, but which is weird.
Yeah. As someone who started in 8th, suddenly playing second and going, this is not 40k, but
Yeah, but
what is the but for you? It's like, it's not 40k, but it
has the atmosphere I expect from playing 40k. Does that make sense? Like,
does it make sense to you?
yes, for me it makes sense because, when reading the rules and expanding my at least understanding of it, this is what I imagine summoning would be. And again, I'm coming purely from a chaos perspective because that's what I read, and apparently I think every faction is its own beast, like has its own things, and I don't know, like for example, how Terrans play. I'm very interested in seeing how the other factions play because they're very different.
Yep. Tyranids play completely differently. They're not allowed to do the same sorts of missions that everybody else is because of the way they are.
Their nature is not the same as everyone's. They wouldn't have stratagems that are differently worded than Eldar. They wouldn't have a detachment that makes you play like you're a Raven Guard. What is happening, Like, no, it's its own entity, like it's its own thing. And I think that's the meat of it. That's what makes it appealing to me.
Yeah.
Every faction is its own thing. It has its own mechanics. And as a whole, Retro K, up until I think 5th, they all have that. And that's what I love about the edition. It's just like, as you mentioned, like Andy Chambers and all the writers for the initial editions had their own interpretation of how this faction plays, but stuck to that core. And that's interesting to discover. Even like someone plays 11th edition or 10th or whatever, going back to these editions, you will see how, this feels like that faction. Which is something, like if you switch on factions in 40k now, I doubt it's gonna feel that deeply. That's why I love discovering different games and discovering different factions because of those different rules that come with them, rather than,
Because for me, going back to your point about it feeling like 40k without feeling like the same game, me playing 10th and 11th edition doesn't feel like 40k to me. Second, third, up to probably about 5th, I think. I don't remember if I played 5th or 6th specifically because it was hazy at that time. But Heresy, 2nd edition, felt like Warhammer 40k to me. It felt like the game I was used to. Whereas 10th 40k and then now 11th felt like a different game that I didn't enjoy as much. It just happened to have the same looking models and background. But I find that very interesting that you say it was a different game, but it felt like 40k, even if it wasn't the way the rules played.
Because it's the bones, like all of that additional things you add to it. The more you add to a game, the more you add to a faction that is special to it, the more that faction feels like it's its own thing.
Yeah. Like you look at the army construction rules for Imperial Guard, you have to take a command section of which you can then take 3 guard squads or heavy squads. And for each of those squads, you can take 1 additional unit. A Leman Russ, a Chimera, Sentinels, Ogrins, Rattlings, whatever. So if you want to have lots of fancy units, you need to have lots of regular guard units. They updated that later on to include tank companies, but originally Guard played and laid out a certain way, and you didn't have that enormous level of tanks to begin with for Imperial Guard. You just had a few. Space Marines, if you want to include tanks, you have to have a Tech Marine. Whereas Chaos, you don't need a Tech Marine because it's just crazy warp nonsense.
Yeah.
So there's different ways all these various armies play without being so similar.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it special. And what makes it feel like a different game, but goes back to that, the 40k-ness to it, you know?
Mm.
And I think that's something we want. Like, we still love the universe and how deep and rich its lore is, but would rather play something with more, I think, personality. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like modern factions have that much personality.
So I'm, as somebody who's played that edition, and that's my kind of core experience of 40k, I'm kind of going back to something I remember and adjusting it with my more mature modern sensibilities that I wouldn't have had as a kid for the arm, whether it's in army construction, tactics, painting, knowledge of lore, how I build an army, all these sorts of things. So I'm kind of going back and fixing it and getting the essence of what I got out of it originally. Whereas you, as somebody who's played from 8th onwards, you're not going back for that specifically. Is it just the flavor and the style of game that it appeals to you? Is there more to it than that?
Definitely. The flavor of the factions is a big attraction for me. The style is also interesting. I love it. It's its own thing as well. Maybe
Like the miniatures, the paint jobs, the red spiky cactus
Yeah.
terrain, that sort of thing. Not just L-shaped ruins everywhere,
exactly.
even though it came with L-shaped ruins. Actually had hills on our board, which was a very old 40k thing because they just used the fantasy terrain and you know, you put books down and that was a hill. You don't see hills in 40k anymore. It's all completely flat with building footprints.
Weirdly angled elves.
Yeah.
And now it's whatever their recipe is for the terrain, because you know you have to have the 40k terrain now to play the 40k game.
Yeah, I feel like they almost need to go fully into infinity levels with the positioning of the model doesn't matter. It's the imaginary cylinder on top of the base that matters.
Yeah.
Because models have arms sticking out. People have to put at weird angles, like face away from the battlefield, so that they don't get unnecessarily shot because, you know, the arm is sticking out at a funny angle that gets seen by the enemy around the corner. And little things like that where, from the base, I can use a laser pointer and see that hand, therefore I can shoot you. Which in old editions you'd go, nah, I can only see your hand. No, that doesn't make sense, you know? Yeah. So I feel like they're going further and further down that, as you say, that e-sport, top-down camera, drawing lines on a map type thing.
40k coaches.
Exactly. Competitive tournament coaching team. And that's a drive for some people. I know that obviously we were talking about the Warhammer Team Championships with the GCC entering literally last episode. So there's place for people who want that. And that's great. And I want people who want to play competitively to have a way and a place to do that. But in that system, it doesn't lend itself to the kind of narrative play. Everything is a 2,000 point or combat patrol matched standard play. Whereas the kind of the essence and the vibe was, what's the story of this battle? What are you trying to do? And the answer is, I'm trying to get more victory points and just kill the opponent. Yeah, but what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to rescue? What's your objective?
Stories.
Yeah.
So, each their own, of course. But I think Infinity, for example, is a much better competitive game than Warhammer could ever be. Like, I don't see the appeal behind competitive 40k. I can really see the appeal behind Infinity competitively, but then Infinity adds that flavor through its missions.
Yeah, like we've been talking about evacuations and murder clues and dance floor patrons and all sorts of things.
Yeah. So, given the changes of the modern Space Marines, do you think that like modern models still feel properly seconded? Like, what's the criteria? to fit that.
A model from second edition and that era, let's say, because it bleeds into Rogue Trader, it bleeds into third and beyond. A model from that era of Retro K is usually clearly from that era in terms of proportions, in terms of the way it's positioned because of the technology at the time. Rogue Trader ended up quite goofy, I would say. Lots of character, but quite goofy. Whereas from second onwards, it got much more kind of streamlined sci-fi professional look and feel. But the poses were still limited because of the casting technology. There was barely a multi-part kit to go around. But modern models look much better. They are much easier to paint generally. Like a Primaris Intercessor is a beautiful thing to attempt to paint. I really loved when I painted it. But when I painted a squad of Assault Intercessors, I painted them in second edition colors because I did a little painting project for one of each of the first founding chapters. And they give off the feel of that era if you paint them right. Ultimately, you're standing 3 feet above a table looking down on them. And a Space Marine kind of looks like a Space Marine, whether it's in Mark IV or Mark X. There's differences, but ultimately it still looks the same. And if you've painted and based and modeled and got reasonably accurate weapons, it can still kind of feel the same. It's just not got the historical accuracy of, oh, that's a bolt carbine versus a bolt gun. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter. But if you've grown up with it mattering, then it does matter. It's purely like a personal preference thing. And I like seeing retro models. I like seeing modern models painted in a retro style. I like seeing retro models painted with modern techniques as well. But to get the feel of second edition is not just in the bright colors. It's not just about using primary colors, really contrasted, really vibrant. There's a palette to it. There's a style to it. There's a way that colors go together. And sometimes the way that colors don't go together and make a big riot of contrast. I'm all for people expressing themselves on new or old models as they like.
Would you personally, like, for example, you want to start Tyranids for third or second? Would you use the modern models?
I think if you can match them up correctly, I don't see a particular issue. I mean, Tyranids specifically have changed a lot. Like you look at the original Tyranid warrior, is a weird ant thing almost. It's like, what is that? Whereas current Tyranids are so out there of their own thing of xenomorphs that I think they're very cool. But Gene Stealers are still Gene Stealers. Termagants, Hormagants, Tyranid warriors, Hive Tyrant, Biovores, they're all still there. They've just moved them into being a different feel. And I find that a reasonable evolution. I'm just used to the ones from second and third. So I wouldn't be averse to seeing a Tyranid army in modern models, whether it's painted as a modern High Fleet or the original sorts of High Fleets. I'm happy to see them on the table in any way.
Because I think the core is the rules.
Exactly.
Sure, it has a very distinct personality and aesthetic, but second edition, I mean. But I personally would like to use generally older style of modeling, like the squatted Chaos Space Marines, the metal upgrades, because metal in general has a different feel to it compared to pure plastic.
Yep.
And that can influence the painting as well. So I love that aesthetic. I would love to try and play second or Retro K in general with a modern army. If we ever play third or fourth, I'm also considering taking out my Necrons, for example, for the first time.
Necrons are another special case, bit like the Tyranids, in that they have changed so much over the years from where they started. Yeah. Like 4 units, then up to a weird army, then they've completely changed the theme behind them from all completely mindless to, well, the bottom ones are mindless, but the top ones have got personality. Yeah. And they've changed what the Necrons are thematically over those years. So ultimately, they're still android warrior guys with ghost players. And whatever they happen to be, go ahead. I'm happy to see completely modern Necron models in second as I am in 11th. There's no difference to me for that. But what modern convenience would you not give up that you have to play with?
My one and only new recruit that will never be replaced. Used to be Battlescribe, but was it?
It was Battlescribe, yeah.
Battlescribe, yeah. But now new recruit has everything. And a digital format of books. I appreciate and respect the physical medium, but convenience-wise, digitally building your list, like those are
There's a non-negotiables for you.
no.
Like the Meelas has a decent library, Imperial armor, Old World, a whole bunch of White Dwarves, some commemorative editions of various things. But you're a digital guy in terms of even reading the rules.
Yeah. Even list building, like when I saw new Retro K editions in New Recruit, it really hyped me up to try that. Like, I really wanted to get back to 40k after our game. Like, it was calling for me, but like the whole structure, the ecosystem around it, I did not enjoy. Did not like. And playing older editions was always on the table. It was just about cultivating an environment around it. And I think you, with your campaign, you did an amazing way of honestly introducing different dishes to one build, which is nice.
Thank you. It's turned out nicely that people are using different editions because I made it so rules light. It doesn't have to be in any particular. You could play it in 11th if you wanted to.
Technically, yeah.
Because it's just about the narrative around it and reasons to fight battles.
But yeah, what would your quality of life that you wouldn't?
That's a very good question. I'm somebody who more likes having the paper rules in front of me. I would rather flick through a book than flick down a PDF to find. I find I skip PDF pages too quickly. Whereas if something is in a physical book, I go, okay, what are all these paragraph headings? Rather than just going next page, next page, next page. List building, not that I've built a list by hand, but I've done it in Excel, which is near as damn it. And I guess sort of final question on what are we trying to recreate? Now, with retro gaming, are we imitating something that's already happened? Or is it that we're trying to express ourselves individually? Where does that line of this is how it was, I'm trying to recreate it, versus I want to just play in that world and universe begin and end?
I think we're just playing the game as is. Like, not that we're imitating or trying to copy anything or bring life into anything. It's a fun game that's worth giving a shot. And it's worth actually playing.
Like thinking about it, my army as a kid was Blood Angels. Like I remember the composition of my Blood Angels army, and that informed my Heresy Blood Angels. So it wasn't that it was a 1-for-1 match, but I wanted to make sure that I had a Predator. I wanted to make sure that I had the Rhino. I wanted to make sure I had certain units that I used at the time. But it wasn't a 1-for-1 recreation. It was an homage to that force. And the next army I want to do for second would be Eldar, which is the force that I always played against and never beat because there were 4 Phoenix Lords, Distort Cannons being guided and doomed. Anyway, beside the point. But that is always an army I've been interested in and would like to do in my own way. So it's not that I want to imitate, the specific armies that were in White Dwarf or the specific battle reports or the campaigns, etc. But I want to use those as a starting point to build something new. Like the Hollow Star campaign, it's there to be a new stone dropped into the pool to give some ripples, not just trying to reflect exactly what I remember back in the day.
Yeah, I see that. And I can see that when you started working on your Blood Angels, they had that second edition energy compared to like, I went with a completely different direction, and you can see everyone else is doing their own thing, but yours were aesthetically obvious, like you could see the second edition of yours on them.
Yeah, like the big white triangles on the top of my rhinos, the hazard stripes on everything.
Yeah, and just blinked right in, and now, you have your Lamenters force actual second, which is, yeah.
Really, they were going to be a third or Liber Badab army.
Yes.
I just then said, let's run this in second.
Yeah.
That's why they have brown rims on their bases, not green,
Yeah.
because they were third onwards when that started to happen. So when I do Eldar, those will be radioactive green bases like they're supposed to be,
Nice.
on pure, perfect lawns.
Beautiful. Just green.
Just green.
Just green.
So for anybody who's listening and has got this far, what does Retro K mean to you? Where does it come from? What does that vibe entail? And what have we not mentioned that makes you think, oh, that's of the period?
Or does Retro K mean anything to you?
Does it mean anything indeed? Yeah. Or is it just different Warhammer?
Is there another system of Warhammer or any other game that you see and you think, yeah, I wish I could play that again? Like, I would love to see what people think about it. What was it called? War Machine? Something like that?
Yeah, War Machine and
That was-
Hordes, which became Warmer Hordes.
Yeah. So people used to play that.
I did.
Yeah.
I had some Kador. They were lovely.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I had Sigma and I had Kador.
you were the people.
I was the people, yes. I was the War Machine player, yes.
Like, is there someone out there that's looks at this now, like the new resurgence of these games and reminisce on how things used to be and want to play it again? Like, that's interesting to see. Like,
Yeah, like looking at Malifaux and going, I don't know how it plays now, but I remember how it played then.
okay. I never played them. I mean, I hardly played anything.
I mean, if you were playing 8th, that was post when Malifaux was big in my area, at
No.
least.
Yeah, it was what I started in 2018, 19. That's when
Yeah, I was probably playing in 2011, 2012.
that was my Warcraft days. Good times.
Speaking of good times, we've been having good times on the Meelas Podcast for the last 17 episodes, including this one. And it's been really good fun doing it for the past, 4 months? Since
Yeah.
May we started this, and it's now nearly the end of August.
Time flies when you're having fun.
We do, and we have fun. And I really enjoy doing this podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It was a nice initiative to have fun. And it's been really fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. And if you've enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe on whatever platform we're on. And also give us a follow on our Instagram page, ad.wargaming. We'll be putting a bit more up on there. We endeavor to give you full updates of what's going on in the Meelas and what our various members have been painting, playing, etc. We look forward to seeing you next time, whether you're on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or more. Thank you, Ibrahim, as always, for your time.
Thank you, Simon. And don't forget to try different editions.